Chuck lemons at me. What you talking about, Day Moth? I see you telling people you're gonna chuck lemons at me. How dare you? Chuck lemons at me. Oh, I forgot. I gotta mute this. Moth? I see you telling people you're gonna. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all. It's wonderful to see you. I bet you my volume's low. Wait a minute. Let me check that. There's so many buttons around here, there's buttons everywhere. It seems like every time I turn around, there's a button that I have to push. Either I didn't push, or I need to push, or I should not have pushed. And isn't that kind of a telltale sign of this world we have around us, That there's buttons. Each of us is a button, and each of us is a pusher. And we're here to do it to each other. Let me get some clean. There we go. Yeah. How's it going? Welcome, my friends, to episode 94, the Ku-Klux Kountry. We have had a wonderful trip down memory lane through the Civil War, through the not-so-Civil War, through the anti-American war, and back again. And we have discovered many things as we revisit it all. I would like to say, first off, that the comments are great. I'm actually surprised that they're so healthy. I have to admit, I was expecting a lot more ignorance. Not to say that I think my audience is ignorant. I really should have rethought that, because that's not what I think. What I mean is that there's usually such a strong backlash that I'm just trying to say that I see hope. There's hope in our future because people are willing to revisit what is happening around them, and that is freaking awesome. That is so tight. I freaking love it. It's part of the best apocalypse ever, which I am enjoying wonderfully, and I hope you are too. Let's get this party started, okay? This is just a stunning image. It comes from this book by Elaine France Parsons, The Ku Klux Klan, The Birth of the Klan During Reconstruction. And I think that the cover of this book adequately shows you what the Klan is from an archetypal standpoint. I'm talking about the real Klan. This is not a white sheets from Fred's or from Family Dollar kind of an operation. This is a kind of warfare. This is a pagan warfare. And when I say pagan, I'm talking about connecting deeply to the land and literally doing whatever it takes to try and defend it. And as you look at war in the past, I'm talking like tribal war. I'm not talking about political war. I'm not talking about war for money. The people who fight war for money aren't people. They're procedures. They're procedures having a fashion statement disagreement. Each side disagrees about the fashion of the other. You're wearing a red coat, how dare you, bam. You're wearing a blue coat, how dare you, bam. When you have someone who is that fucking stupid, and yeah, I'm being cussy on purpose. Yeah, if you have someone that's being that stupid, where they will enlist themselves into a fashion disagreement and kill for it, I don't think you're actually dealing with people anymore. I think that you're dealing with an empty shell that used to have a person. And the moment that person pulls that trigger, that empty shell turns into a very bad creature, because that empty shell was already bad enough. That empty shell was already a problem. But now that empty shell's been tainted with violence. It's been tainted with PTSD. It's been tainted with the taste or aversion to blood. Either one of those is a fetish. A fetish is on both sides of the polarity. You're going to see that as we start to uncover this today. It's all part of the mask of what's been done to us for so long. Thank you guys for the super chats. Thank you for the super chats yesterday. I'm going to, how dare you, says Mason662. Ashley Lowe, there's that jumping pair again. Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Rachel. Fancy new sheets. That's all, man. Man, Rachel, you're just out there on that diving board. I freaking love it. I see the wink, but yeah, that's part of how it's great that we can even have these conversations. The reason why that's great is because it is impossible to look at a human through compassion and honestly believe that the idea of melanin would create, on 3 different occasions, 3 different rises of the KKK purely on a race-driven issue. I'd like to point out that race here isn't even an accurate word. The closest thing that you could ever come to pointing at this is melanin, but that doesn't exist. What you're about to see here is that even melanin is not an issue that the Klan was formed around. That what you see forming, this pagan wizard heathen dude who's trying to defend his land right here, is the natural result of burning down your village, of injecting dissonance, of sending foreign immigrant soldiers from across the ocean into your hometown and setting it on fire. That to inject that kind of dissonance on any culture is going to have a backlash. And for us to pretend that it shouldn't, or it can't, or it didn't, is about the most ignorant thing that we could do. And thank God none of you guys are in the comments. It's brilliant. With the exception of the Robbie Roberto guy. It's just stunning. It's just like, I wonder about this. Well, hey, you missed this, James. Even that's great. I've been told how ignorant I am because I do not understand the Jesuit role in the Civil War. That's fine. I'm not interested in clubs. I'm interested in people. You see, the people I hold responsible for the Civil War are the ones that enlisted to begin with, are the ones that decided to leave their own homeland and get on a boat. You're about to find out how many times in history man has been lured into oblivion on the promises of a free boat ride. Yeah, we've already actually seen this. We've seen it with the immigrant trade, with the slave trade. We've seen it with the start of the Civil War, from the Crimean War. We've seen a sailing army of bandits armed with the most sophisticated artillery ever made and injected into a landslide, into a countryside where everything's destroyed and burned, and what you see left is desperation. What you see right now is a lot of what Elon Musk wants you to see. Remember when Elon Musk, he took that giant ball bearing and he threw it at the window of his Tesla pickup truck, the bulletproof window, and it smashed. They're trying to create a West world. They're trying to create a world where each of us dies inside and we go westing and we become robots and we are programmed by those around us who have something to say. Because we've evacuated ourselves to our procedure. What does the robot in Westworld do? The first thing they notice is, what am I wearing? Okay, I'm a whore, or I'm a bad guy, or I'm a sheriff. This is my role. This is my function. And regardless of how I might change my function, as long as I am in this procedure, others around me will treat me as such. They will treat me as the procedure itself. The most integrated place in the world prior to the Civil War was the South. The most disparaging place, the place with the highest riches and the cheapest and the poorest conditions, was the North. The North. As we unravel, as we see that the Anaconda Plan was scrapped, as the Anaconda Plan showed you a desire to destroy Indian villages across the West, across the South and the West, the Central, right? Mississippi Delta. We looked at that all the way from Oklahoma. There were no plantations in Oklahoma. This was not a system. This was not a battle, I should say, to destroy a system called slavery. It was a battle to destroy a heritage of land. A heritage, yes, that predates the Ku Klux Klan. That predates a melanin deficiency in anyone who came here. I'm talking about a heritage that predates DeSoto. I'm talking about a heritage of Quetzalcoatl, the bird landing on the rock, piercing the serpent. If you were to look at the Panama Canal as the tail, you see a living snake winding its way through Mexico into Texas, and finally biting the tail of the Appalachian Mountains. The oldest mountains in the world have the oldest people in the world. But you've been told there was nothing there. There was a film made. It was, let's see, I forgot the name already. The Birth of a Nation. D.W. Griffin made this film. It was released in February 8th, 1915, which, by the way, was the second rising of the Klan. You're going to see that the Klan was brought up and created. Initially, it was an organic organization, and then the clowns moved in, and the Klan became a perfect bridge for dissonance, injecting dissonance. Basically, you had Antifa. I'm going to show you that Antifa is the Klan. I'm going to show you that Antifa took over the Klan, and that before the Klan was taking over, you had people that were wanting to save their land. And before Antifa was taken over, you had people that wanted to save their body, their soul. And both of them lost to the very medicine that was claimed to save them. This film in 1915 was called the most controversial film ever made in the United States. Lincoln is portrayed positively, unusual for a narrative that promotes the lost cause ideology. On the other hand, the film portrays African Americans, many of whom are played by white actors in blackface, as unintelligent and sexually aggressive towards white women. The film presents the Ku Klux Klan as heroic force necessary to preserve American values in a white supremacist social order. I am hoping that you guys have your goggles on 24/7, so it's almost maybe insulting for me to tell you, hey man, you got your goggles on, right? Anytime I choose Wikipedia because I'm hoping that you guys have learned how to see through things. When I say see through, what I mean is that you can take off the fashion, the procedure of today, which is that we all hate slavery, we hate apprenticeships, we hate a system where one is taught by another. We are ashamed of the fact that we're not perfect. We have the Zionism germ theory installed in us. And I'm hoping you can apply that when you look at these things. The reason why I'm showing this film is not because it's controversial. I'm showing this film because after you unwrap all the clowning in it, you see the true nature of what was happening at the time. It's going to reveal something to you, even though it's pretending to tell you something totally different. And that's what Wikipedia is telling you, something totally different. But if you look, you'll see that it's telling you something else. It's telling you that it was the most controversial film ever made in the United States. And it's telling you that Wikipedia thinks that because it's controversial, it shouldn't make money. In spite of its divisiveness, The Birth of a Nation was a huge commercial success. It shows you how stupid Wikipedia is. It shows you that Wikipedia thinks that something that would make $100 million in 1915, a lot of money, was a total farce, and they had no idea that it could ever happen because it was so controversial. In fact, the NAACP spearheaded an unsuccessful campaign to ban the film. And I would say to you that this is the perfect opportunity for a clown in 1915, right? For a congressional conglomerate to repeat the exact same thing they did in 1959 by enlisting people in a war that hadn't even started yet. That you could re-inject this notion and come up with a new war using the black people as fodder to create more oppression, to create another realm of control, and to blame the very people who are the most dangerous to the system that's trying to violate the land itself. This film is really telling. In fact, I think that I might not get everything that you get out of it, and I'm going to get some things that I just cannot explain to you out of it. I find it comical. Mostly I find it comical and enlightening. I could certainly pretend to clutch some pearls and go, "Oh, I can't believe that guy's in blackface." But you'll notice that most of the commentary in Wikipedia is it was so racist because white people had blackface on. But if you watch the movie, there's actually black actors in there too. Black actors are playing right next to white actors in blackface. And also there are good black characters and bad black characters. Wikipedia is telling you that it's racist because it has bad black characters in it. It's telling you that's why it's racist. But if you actually watch the film, I've got a little excerpt, don't worry, you'll see that there's nothing clear at all about the black versus white. If anything, this is about like marauders from far away coming in and raping a woman, and the Klan saving them. And at one point in time, the Klan is saving black people. But it's still called the most controversial racial movie of all time because that's what clowns wanted to do. That's very helpful. Let's watch it. Mared Moth, I am watching you. Watch those lemons, you.
was to whip you, Mom. I didn't want to. Oh, jeez. Yeah, baby. Notice the wait, he's got the I'll tell you about it. That's I picked out the worst parts of that movie. When I say the worst parts is if you go on the ADL site, it's like this is the evilest part of this movie, basically. What was that clip I just showed you? And what you see is a cavalry, right? You've got a cowboys versus Indians, Klan versus Northerners, Klan versus black. There's definitely has the black element in there. But it's interesting that inside the house, that the actual lady that's running the house is beating attackers off, and she's black herself. This isn't a black issue. This is a foreign issue. And if you really want to understand what the Klan is, you really have to understand where it came from and what they were doing. This is an image, podcasters, this is an image of two white-faced people hanging from trees, suggesting that the KKK is on a mule. Basically, he's walked away and now they're hanging. And these are intimidation tactics. These are intimidation tactics that are, by the way, brutal and awful, desperate, violent. Everything that you saw in the Civil War, you were seeing in what I'm showing you. In fact, what I'm trying to convey to you is that how do you tell a country with 10% literacy, I think, no central system of communication, no telegraph running across the mountain, no easily distributed form of news? How do you tell that system, hey, look, I know we burnt down Etowah, I know we burnt down Atlanta, I know we burnt down Charleston, I know we burnt down Charlotte, I know we burnt down every single village in between, but the war's over now, and anyone here who acts crazy is considered violent. And anyone here who's trying to protect that land, and anyone here who's still worried, is a racist. They're the problem. Keep in mind, back then it wasn't even racist. We hadn't even developed that concept yet. Mo- Most of us were already imprisoned because we took an exotic boat ride. We believed the captain. Like the old joke I used to say, which no one's ever laughed at, is that Billy Budd was really impressed with his captain. And the joke is that he was impressed. You guys, if you're stupid, you will wake up on a boat. And when you wake up on a boat, it's no different than it's always a billionaire's boat, if you think about it. In modern times, it's a yacht. Back then, it was a giant merchant ship. And when you wake up on the boat, you now are dependent on someone for your survival. Someone gets to throw you off the deck, off the ship, in the water. You become a slave the moment you take the exotic boat ride. And it's sold to you as, hey man, you want a trip to Babylon? And so the people that are coming here are already fucked. They already have a sense of dissonance. They have no root. They have no heritage. Most of them are suffering from amnesia. Separated from their family when they get here. Whites, blacks, it's not even whites, blacks, is it? Is it? It's broken down to the clothes you wear. There's a Townsend episode. There's a channel called Townsend. Beautiful channel. There's a Townsend episode where he really explains what I was trying to say yesterday. The importance of clothing back then. The way you were treated, your opportunities, were not based on your skin color. They were based on your clothing. They were based on your presentation, how well you presented yourself. Having a nice coat was a big deal. Having shoes was a big, big deal. Having a belt was a big deal. Having a hat. What did the 79 Scottish do? The Scottish Highlands yesterday. 3 years before the war, they were handing out a tartan, pants, kilt, shoes, hat, coat, belt, drinking bar, private club, marches through the town, ability to plunder, the most advanced weaponry ever made. Please use as much compassion as you can and put yourself in the South. What would your reaction be to that? Would you put on a mask? I would say that probably you would. And that mask is either going to be a fucking Klan hood or a muzzle of submission. It's going to be one or the other. You're going to put on that procedure if you're weak. And what happened in the North? Most people put on the procedure. Most people were like, well, fuck, I don't have shit anyway. I'll do it. Give me that coat, boy. Give it to me. I'll take it. The coat itself was another fancy boat ride, wasn't it? The shoes, the hat, all of those were just more fancy boat rides. You have to understand that the South kept burning and burning and burning for years after the Civil War was over. And on top of that smoldering, you've got inflammation. And on top of that inflammation, you have deep, deep betrayal and hurt. And it's not even from the federal government. Most of the Klan complaints you see are with subversion. It's not with government, it's with subversion in government. It's Hitler all over again. But not in the way that Wikipedia or any media outlet will ever tell you. It's when you read Mein Kampf, the very, very first problem, the very first beef you see that Hitler ever has is with French aristocracy, not Jews. The very, very, very first problem the Klan has is with Northern aristocracy, not blacks. And if you had enough compassion, anyone could see how impossible it would be to convince your neighbor to put on a fucking sheet because of melanin. That's literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's right up there with NASA. And we know this. And that's why the comments have been so good on this stuff, because we're just looking. We're trying to just see what was actually happening. This photograph depicts an early KKK of 1870. This is in New York, Vision 289. Please note the skull and bones on the ground. Please note 2 femur bones and a skull placed between them. These are intimidation clubs. These are clubs of prana power. These are clubs that are meant to restore their connection, not to the land, but to a tribe. These are immigrants tribing up, and the North tribed up. They tribed up so hard that they watched the 79th and they said, I want that too. And the Union was like, no problem, man. We're getting ready to burn the fuck out of the South. You can come with us. Do you want to tribe up? And they're like, yeah, man, this is a good tribe. Dissonance causes this, by the way. Dissonance, not the Anaconda Plan. No, Lincoln's plan. Send in the fires, right? The original Ku Klux Klan was called Ku-Klux Kountry, fraternity founded at the University of North Carolina in 1812. It was also known as Old Kappa Alpha, Ka Kappa Alpha Circle of Brothers in the Alpha Society. The name derives from ancient Greek meaning circle of brothers. The organization quickly expanded through the southern United States, not only on college campuses, but also cities where alumni settled. The society began to decline during the 1850s and disappeared altogether after the Civil War. The group was at its height as far as its collegiate presence was concerned by the spring of 1855, when local college politics at the University of Alabama caused a rift in a chapter there. A minority faction of the chapter disclosed its secrets of the order, leading to chapter dissolution. I'm going to skip ahead here and just tell you that John Lester, a founder of the Ku Klux Klan, claimed that the Klan's initiation ritual was based on a popular collegiate fraternal order, and it had been speculated by Alan Trellis that Ku-Klux Kountry almost certainly provided the model for the early Klan. It was a fraternal order. It was a high society fraternal order, much like the high society union orders that built the 79th Scottish Highlands. Do you guys see what I'm saying to you? That the exact same essence and energy created the red and the blue, the Scottish and the Klan. There's a reason why St. Andrews is the birth of the rebel flag and is the patron saint of the 79th. It's the same spirit. And maybe the guy that made the comment about my ignorance about Jesuits, maybe you want to say that's it. But I'd rather hold people responsible rather than clubs. If you hold clubs responsible, you're going to end up thinking that, oh, well, I saw a Masonic Bible, so I burnt the church down because obviously they're all fucking evil. And it's just dumb shit like that. You know, that's why I don't have a lot of tolerance for that. It's not Jesuits, it's John, it's Bob, it's Paul. All right? Sure, we can look at their system, but I'd rather look at the people. I'd rather hold people responsible, not ideals. Enough of my speech there. You guys, last week I read you a brilliant speech by Nathan Bedford Forrest in front of what would eventually become the NAACP. Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest was elected the first Grand Wizard and claimed to be the Klan's national leader. The Klan's national leader was the first white man to speak in front of the NAACP, and it was a beautiful speech. You guys heard it. It was a beautiful, beautiful speech. The very first Klan. Forrest stated that the Klan's primary opposition was to the Loyal Leagues, Republican state governments, people such as Tennessee Governor William Ganaway Brownlow, and other carpetbaggers and scallywags. He argued that many Southerners believed that blacks were voting for the Republican Party because they were being hoodwinked by the Loyal Leagues. Did you hear that? Were you wearing the visor and saw through that? Forrest didn't say, think about this. He argued that many Southerners believed that blacks were voting for the Republican Party because they were being hoodwinked by the loyal leaks. He did not say, blacks are voting. I am mad because blacks are voting. He did not say, I am mad. The first wizard of the KKK did not say, I am mad because blacks are voting. All he had to do was put a period right there. But he didn't. He didn't. He said they were being hoodwinked. Why would someone who started an entire war that wanted to kill hundreds of thousands of people because those hundreds of thousands of people told him that black people were equal, why would he go so far as to say, well, my beef is that they were hoodwinked? It's even, and I'm showing you Wikipedia on purpose, guys, because I want you to see the truth is not hiding. It's right there, but you need compassion to see through it. The compassion is simple. It's simple. You're not consenting with the Klan. You're taking your assemblage point. There. And now you've got your prana and it's on this weird beholder thing where it's like all these eyes. It's like, and it flies into the other person and it turns around. And it turns around and it looks outside through two little eye holes. Through two little eye holes. And says, how is it that you see the world this way? And the answer is a 17-year-old kid saying, they fucking burned everything. Everything. Not only that, they didn't even speak English. They came from nowhere. And my government paid them. My government paid them to come do this. And the oldest city in the South, Etowah, is gone. And the largest city on the Mississippi Delta is burnt to a crisp. A city larger than London that's been here thousands of years is gone. And I want to protect my land. I want to protect my way of life. Where is there room for melanin in there? Where? Because the only place you're going to see it is the exact same newspapers that I showed you yesterday that were paying them all in chains, saying, yes, you pick cotton in chains. That's how it happens. Down there, they're picking cotton in chains. Did you guys know that most of Congress, when they were hearing the reports of the first KKK stuff, they knew it was bullshit? They were actually saying, that sounds like total bullshit. I think you guys are just planning those stories. The 1800s, the 19th century was the land of hoax, right? It was the land of watch me start a fire with a newspaper story. And you'd think we've gotten better, but we've gotten worse. We're trying though. Not trying to bitch at us. We're trying, we're getting there. Not trying to bitch, just saying. Come on, humans. Forrest called the Klan to disband in 1869. James, the first Grand Wizard of the Klan asked for it to disband? Yeah, he's the same guy that spoke at the NAACP. Told him how we're all equal. Told him how he hopes that they will vote for the candidate that they seem fit. Was only worried, not about them voting, but was worried about them being hoodwinked. Oh, James, that's so racist. You said hoodwinked. Yeah, just keep squirting, buddy. Forrest called for the Klan to disband in 1869, arguing that it was being perverted from its original honorable and patriotic purposes, becoming injurious instead of subservient to the public peace. Historian Stanley Horn argues that generally speaking, the Klan's end was more in the form of spotty, slow, and gradual disintegration than a form of decisive disbandment. A Georgia-based reporter wrote in 1870, a true statement of the case is not that the Ku Klux are an organized band of licensed criminals, but that men who commit crimes call themselves Ku Klux. Do you understand what he's saying there? The Klan itself is not an organization of evil, But because of the anonymity, and he doesn't say this because he won't admit that, and because of the sensationalism of all the press and all the stories going to Congress, anyone is now using the Klan as a cover. People, because of the government telling them, cover your face, people are now covering their face and doing bad things. That's the essence of what that's saying there. Republican Governor of North Carolina William Woods Holden called out the militia against the Klan in 1870, adding to his unpopularity. Now that's, you might think, oh well, James, of course they're a violent group. They should. No. Let's read this again, but this time we're not going to read just the highlighted part. We're going to read the sentence before it. In many states, officials were reluctant to use black militia against the Klan out of fear that racial tensions would be raised. So what does the governor of North Carolina do? He calls out the black militia against the Klan in 1870. This and extensive violence and fraud at the polls caused the Republicans to lose their majority in the state legislature. Dissatisfaction with Holden's actions contributed to white Democrat legislators impeaching him. What happened in Charlottesville? What happened? CNN said there's going to be a huge race riot here. They sent one guy in with a creased Nazi flag. I showed you that crease. The only Nazi flag on site. They created a barricade. The government created a barricade. They lined up those giant cattle prodders you'd see at a festival. And they ran people through a gauntlet and directed them around where the protesters were. They said, protesters, you're allowed to be here, but you have to be in this confined area. And then we're going to run the other guys, your opponents, right next to you. And then when you guys fight, we're going to call half of you racist and the other half of you victims. And the exact same thing was happening then. This was post-Civil War, 1870. The South was still burning because no one came to put it out. Lincoln did not come to put the fire out. The people of the South were trying as hard as they could to put the fire out. And the best fit way they could see that is we need a fraternity. We need to find a way to band together and stop this. Instead, they're re-injecting more racial tension. The kind of thing that men are afraid or ashamed to do openly and by day, they accomplish secretly, masked and at night. The KKK Night Riders sometimes claim to be ghosts of Confederate soldiers. Think about that. Ghosts of Confederate soldiers. That's prana, isn't it? You're tapping in. You're tapping in. There's a legend where I grew up of Green Eyes. Runs through the Chickamauga battlefield. Blood Creek. One of the worst, bloodiest battles of the Civil War. And when you're out there watching the fireflies, sometimes, if you're alone, you'll see green eyes. Green eyes just floating about eye height. And that power, that fear that you have as a child, you're trying to play frisbee, you're trying to have fun, and you're like, where's green eyes? That is a technology of belief. It is a flow of prana that causes an adrenaline to rise. The adrenaline rises out of mythology. And that's what this guy's doing. And that's what the Union was doing. That's what all those guns were doing. Same thing. Trying to show you the power of belief, prana, fear, intimidation. I'd like you to consider this stat in the realm of how many towns were burned, how many people were killed by the pillage. I'd like for you to look at this stat now with a little bit more honesty about what was happening all around you. They drove successful black farmers off their land. By the way, the South already had, according to Wikipedia, the South has successful black farmers as early as 1867. I just want to point that out. They drove successful black farmers off their land. Generally, it could be reported that in North and South Carolina, in 18 months, ending in June 1867, there were 197 murders and 548 cases of aggravated assault. And what I see when I read that is that the war's not over yet, because it's not that clean. In fact, all the crime and pillage that was coming down from the north really just activated it all around. Every city you enter into, if there's a psychopath in that city that's kind of like on the edge, I'm sort of a psychopath, but I'm going to be normal right now, is like going to see that and go, hey, this is pretty profitable. And the end result of that is you end up in 18 months after the war, guys, think about it. As the war is still crispy, as it's still burning, you have 10 murders a month. It's like one every 3 days. I'm not trying at all to say, oh, it's not bad. I'm trying to say that, can you look at this in the context of war? Can you look at what's happening around you? The fog of war is a feature, guys. The fog of war is a feature. And that feature leads to massive political change. Massive change. This is William T. Anderson. Born 1840. Died 1864. 24 years old. Known by the nickname Bloody Bill Anderson, was one of the deadliest and most notorious pro-Confederate guerrilla leaders in the American Civil War. Anderson led a band of volunteer partisan rangers who targeted Union loyalists and federal soldiers in the state of Missouri and Kansas. Raised by a family of Southerners in Kansas, Anderson began supporting himself by stealing and selling horses in 1862. How dare you? After his father was killed by a Union loyalist judge, Anderson fled to Missouri. Then he robbed travelers and killed several Union soldiers. In early 1863, he joined Quintrell's Raiders, a group of pro-Confederate guerrillas which operated along the Kansas-Missouri border. He became a skilled bushwhacker. Now, 1863, that's the middle of the war. He's not fighting a war, he's looting. He's looting under the auspices of the South versus the North. He's looking at the dissonance around him, and he's capitalizing on it. He's changed his mode from natural law to the quickening. There could be only one. Not only that, but the very tactics used to save the blacks meant that his father had to be killed and his two sisters, so he ends up going on a revenge quest. This guy used to run with Bill. Wild Bill? Wait a minute. I think he was once in a... I think it says here. If it's not in here, it's in another thing I read about him. George and Todd. He did like a lot of damage, like a lot. At one point, he was leading like 80 guys, and they. I'm sorry, guys, it's not actually on this page. He's leading like 80 guys and took over a train. Then he set the train on fire. Then he sent the train down the tracks with it on fire. After killing 20 Union troops that were on the train. Not saying he's a good guy. I'm trying to say that this is what happens when you burn down a country. You create a lawless state. You create a Seattle. You create a Minneapolis. You create an Atlanta, right? You create it. It's government sanctioned. He was made by the government. I wanted to read this. I'm not sure why. I honestly can't remember. Klansmen killed more than 150 African Americans in the country. Florida. Milder encounters. Oh, yeah. This is just an example. Okay. So, the whole time while this is happening, Congress is meeting saying, we have to punish them more. The South is being bad. They're not paying attention. We have to punish them more. And in order to punish them more, they twisted. When I say twisted, what I mean is they showed a focal length. They showed a focal on one aspect and said, because of this, we have to suspend habeas corpus throughout the entire country. We have to put them down. More. And this is one of this. I just want you to picture what this was like. One of these teachers, Miss Allen of Illinois, whose school was at Cotton Gin Port in Monroe County, was visited between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning on March 1871, as late as 1871, by about 50 men mounted and disguised. Each man wore a long white robe, and his face was covered by a loose mask with scarlet stripes. She was ordered to get up and dress, which she did at once, and then admitted to her room the captain and lieutenant, who, in addition to the usual disguise, had long horns on their head and a sort of device in front. The lieutenant had a pistol in his hand, and he and the captain sat down while 8 or 10 men stood inside the door, and the porch was full. They treated her gentlemanly and quietly, but complained of the heavy school tax, said she must stop teaching and go away, and warned her that they never gave her a second notice. She heeded the warning and left the county. 50 men show up, violate her rights, breaking and entering, kidnapping, I think you could argue that, intimidation, threatening, all that bad stuff. I'm not trying to say it's right. But I'm trying to say, can you see the mindset that these men have? Assuming this is true, that this testimony is true, can you see the mindset that they're in? Is it a mindset of rape pillage? Is it a mindset of blacks can't vote? Or is it a mindset of all of us are being hoodwinked, all of us are being taxed, all of us are being penalized, all of us are still under attack? Just which is it? Which is it? Because I'll tell you what's happening here is that you've been asked to stop trusting humanity and start trusting the union. That's what this was all about. It was convincing you that you cannot trust your spirit. You cannot trust your community. You cannot trust your fellow man. You can only trust Lincoln. You can only trust the Union. That's what this was all about. And that's why people who get so mad is they don't want to trust themselves, and they hear you suggesting, hey, maybe you should trust yourself again, and it freaks them out. They don't like it. In 1871, the Civil Rights Act allowed the president to suspend habeas corpus. Did you hear that? An act called the Civil Rights Act literally took away civil rights. In 1870, a federal grand jury determined that the Klan was a terrorist organization. 2 months ago, Donald Trump declared that Antifa was a terrorist organization. I'm not sure if it's harder for you to have sympathy for the Klan or for Antifa. Like, that's an interesting thought experiment, isn't it? Isn't that an interesting thought experiment? Two groups. Very similar, but very different. In addition to the habeas corpus, Lincoln arrested 14,000 political prisoners. That's like it's like a quarter of Sherman's entire army of just civilians. In fact, there was an incident in this book, Julian Albert's Adventures in the Confederacy, in which the Northern reporters were imprisoned by the South and the Southern reporters were visited by the North, and they were negotiating a reporter for reporter exchange. Remember on Friday I told you about an exchange that the South hated blacks so much that they were willing to trade 5 Union soldiers for 1 black Confederate soldier. That's how much they hated the blacks, that the South wanted to trade 5 of their own prisoners for 1. That's how much. And this really says it all, doesn't it? Podcasters, this is a photo of Lincoln, it's an image of Lincoln, if he's real. Public sentiment is everything, he says. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. Public sentiment is everything. And it's true, because that's how you install dissonance, isn't it? If you have dissonance, you're ready to go. How do you install dissonance? You just burn the shit out of everything. That's all you got to do. Just burn it all down. And then, when they start to get mad, suspend their civil rights, and send a black militia after them because you really want to make sure that we make this about race. You really want to make sure that that's happening. Otherwise, the magic don't work. This system is so old that it might be difficult to even recognize. It might be hard for some of you to see it because it's in a different costume now. Because it doesn't look the same. But it's the exact same system, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. There are two towers, and those two towers resonate the same note if your aperture is too small to see. White people are born with certain traits or privileges which give them immutable advantages over other races. No one must ever forget the inherent advantages of the white race. And when you have the aperture, and when you're ready for the truth, you can step back and see that this statement has more to it than you think. Because this statement is shared by the exact same polarity that was installed. That a Black Lives Matter activist who's wearing a mask over his face and a white Klan activist wearing a hood over his face would both say what I'm about to say in unison. That white people are born with certain traits or privileges which give them immutable advantages over other races, and that no one must ever forget the inherent advantages of the white race. And that these two people that you thought were as different as you could possibly imagine are the same Scooby-Doo, are the same masked marauder. And it fooled us again. The media fooled us again. The magic boat ride from a billionaire fooled us again. And we will climb on a boat, we will get in a coal car, we will put on a uniform, we will travel with a gun and shoot people for their fashion, all because we fell for the very, very, very first lie. We took the first vaccine. We believed in the germ theory that the problem is not the terrain, it is not the fires that Sherman left. The problem is us. The problem is in our inability to understand that even though they're burning down our entire infrastructure, they're doing it because they care. And that how dare us be so offended by that? These are two towers, aren't they? Joachim and Boaz. Two towers. And they pull everyone in between. All of us. All of us have been sucked in between. And if it keeps going, friends, it's not going to get better. It will get worse. It will only get worse as long as we continue to evacuate ourselves. Because Uncle Sam has always been in the middle. Uncle Sam has always been driving the free candy van. And we've been riding him back for too long. In fact, if we keep going, there will be more of this. I'd like for you to notice that they're both wearing masks. I'd like you to notice that the guy standing between them, leading them on a leash, looks exactly like Uncle Sam. This is the Gay Liberation Front, by the way. They're out protesting, and one's a sailor and the other's a cop. Guys, you could not ask for more symbology. You could not ask for a truer picture of America right now. Two forces, the cops and the Navy, controlled by one central Uncle Sam, all three of them wearing masks, all three of them pretending to be fighting for pride. Fighting for pride. Do you see what the dissonance does? Do you see how procedure can empty a man? The mask is no big deal for them. The mask actually helps these guys, doesn't it? The mask gives them a little bit of safety because no one truly recognizes who they are. The mask is a good thing for dog people. The hood of the Klan, the mask of Antifa, and now the mask of COVID, the fires of germ warfare. Babylon is burning. Sherman came in and burning Babylon all around us. And it's the best apocalypse ever. It is because you can see it all. You see it all exactly as it is. You see it for what it's always been this whole time. And I'd like you to take what you see now and take it into your ancestors. Take it into your bones and say, I understand. Even if you can't. If you try and understand why the Civil War happened without looking at the magic boat ride, without looking at how important clothes were to survival, without looking at all the indentured servitude, without looking at everything, you're doing your ancestors a disservice. And the same would happen now. I would like all of you to understand that in 60 years, there will only be one person on whatever we think the internet is. It will be a very small handful of people telling you that COVID was fake. It's true. It will be a very tiny portion of them. And they will have to tell you that through secret encoded memology. This ability to communicate with you over a machine where they're pretending to say one thing but they're saying another. Sort of an anti-CAPTCHA. Because that's all we're really going to have left when it comes to using Babylon to communicate with each other. We're going to have to go back to the campfire. We're going to have to go back to eye to eye, hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder. Because this system that we're using to communicate on is going to erase the truth, exactly like they've erased the truth of the Civil War, the American Revolution, World War I, World War II, the Crimean War, the Ku Klux Klan, and every other lie that you've been told. Our folly is falling for this. Our folly is to continuously listen and just take it as face value that it has to be true. But we are doing better. We are getting there. It's a slow process, but we are getting there. Sensei has hit us so many times in the face with a board, and we're finally catching on. And that's why I'm even able to make these live streams, isn't it? This is a testament to how well we've come. There are 1,000 people right now listening to this, and they're not clutching pearls. They're not, well, I'm gonna kill. It's none of that. It's just, that's interesting. What we're doing now is called veneration. To venerate your ancestors is to give them time, to give them energy, to give them love and compassion. And right now, your ancestors have been turned into demons. They've been cast into a deep, dark pit, and they've been called evil. They've been labeled and separated. But you know the truth. I've shown you some of the truth. You've known it anyway. The reason why school was so hard is because it was all bullshit. And this detector inside you, in the cochlea, your cochlea was like, it doesn't sound true, man. Doesn't sound true. Sounds like bullshit. And we're getting there. We're getting there. It's awesome. I'm going to sign off now. I am driving. I'm traveling now, officially. As soon as I hit stop stream, I am traveling. I am a traveling man. I do not know if you guys will see me tomorrow at 11 due to internet limitations. I do not know if you will see me Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. 3 days. It's possible that you may not hear from me in 3 days. I've been freaking out about that because I love doing this show so much. And I've been working so much on the momentum of it. And I hope that I won't lose you in this time away. But I will be bringing you some gravy because where I'm going is going to be pretty awesome. A lot of footage is going to come from that. But the live stream, it's going to be up in the air. I just don't know. I'm certainly going to try and do a live stream tomorrow, but I won't know for sure because the road has its own destiny, so to speak. Keep it real. You are my favorite historian today. Yes. Love your work, sir. Thanks for being real. Thanks, Keep It Real. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. Matt Z, thanks for the $5 and the dancing pear. Man, that pear's a good guy. He's always in a good mood. He's always dancing. And how's old D-Live doing? Hey, guys. Thanks for being here. OKC Bears holding down the fort. Thank you, sir, for all that. And, yeah. All right, guys. Check out Owen. He'll be coming on soon on D-Live. I encourage that. And also, if you guys get a bad recording ever on YouTube, it garbles the recording stream sometimes. You can go to D-Live, and there's a replay down there. And you might have better luck seeing it that way. And I am fully stocked on books now. If you guys want to buy my books, I have all 4. I've got a special on all 4. The Quadrivium of James True, as I'm calling it. And you guys can get all of those. They're on my website. I'm sorry to pitch that, but it would really help if I pitch this. If I pitch this, I can do more things. We can produce more awesome content and do stuff. Here's a link to those books if you want to check them out. I just posted one. There you go, D-Live. And here you go, YouTube. Guys, thanks a lot for being here. And I really appreciate you. This kind of a slow, tapered off goodbye, I guess. But you guys are normally used to me saying a really quick goodbye. So this time